In other news, authorities in Turkey have confirmed they have blocked access to Russia's Sputnik news agency website in the country. That's according to its bureau chief in Turkey. The site now shows a message saying an administrative measure has been taken. Sputnik also says they were given no warning by the authorities. Well, we have requested a comment on this from various organisations, including Reporters Without Borders and the International Federation of Journalists. We have not received any responses, though, as yet. But now we can talk to Stephen Ellis. He is from the International Press Institute. Thanks very much for coming on, Stephen, this morning. Firstly, what do you make of these actions that have been taken by the Turkish government?
Well, they're disappointing actions, but not entirely surprising. Turkey's law gives the authorities the ability to shut down websites for fairly broad grounds, national security, prevention of crime. So it's unclear why Sputnik's website has been shut down at this point, but given that Turkey government has shut down thousands and thousands of websites in the past few years, especially since this law came into effect last year, it's not very surprising that they must find some reason to shut down a website if there is criticism coming that is unwelcome.
And from a legal point of view, I mean, can this sort of case be taken to an international court, for example?
Presumably, it would depend on sort of which argument. If it was raised on free expression grounds, perhaps it can go before the European Court of Human Rights. Perhaps in the interim, it can go before Turkey's constitutional court. Unfortunately, that's the sort of thing that will take years, and it has to wind its way through the judicial system. Unfortunately, in Turkey, at the lower level, the courts are not viewed as sympathetic to opponents of the current regime.
All right. Now, look, we have seen, haven't we, just recently growing concerns about media freedom in Turkey. If you just stay there, Stephen, for one moment, Stephen, we can have a look at showing there a few examples of journalists that have been arrested in Turkey and also action that's been taken against newspapers too. Why do you think we're seeing this sort of action taking place over the last few months? Certainly an increase.
Well, I can only speculate, but I would imagine that it has something to do with the president's wish to enact a new constitution that would grant him larger powers. We've seen a large or very broad crackdown on press freedom and free expression, not just among journalists, but among academics, civil society, attorneys, all across the board in the last few years. I think it started somewhat late last decade, but it really kicked off in 2011 and then in 2013 following the Gezi Park protests, when a lot of the censorship or the pressure on media was brought to bear as well on the online sphere after seeing what could be achieved through social media organizing. I think now the president is hoping to expand his powers after the rerun of an election last year gave him a majority again in parliament. And I think that the president and those in power see any potential criticism through the media as a potential obstacle to achieving that increased power that they want. So they are moving to silence it and make sure that only positive coverage is given to them.
OK. In addition to that, we've heard from the Prime Minister, haven't we, recently, and he said that having a press card doesn't give journalists immunity from criminal activity. What sort of protection do journalists actually have then in Turkey?
Well, not much. It sort of depends on the degree to which they're willing to speak out against the government. Those who engage in self-censorship, those who toe the party line, are going to be okay. But those who speak out of line risk losing their jobs, or, as you may have seen in the case of timurJAUH journalists, being sent to prison, potentially for life term. We've seen a number of journalists imprisoned and released and imprisoned over the last few years. Unfortunately, if you are a journalist in southeastern Turkey, you face the very real possibility that you could be killed, especially Syrian journalists who have fled from the Islamic State group. As we just saw last week, another journalist, the fourth in about 6 months, has been murdered by ISIS supporters who came from Syria. So, unfortunately, while it appears from the outside to be sort of a normal functioning media scene, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of self-censorship, there's a lot of people that, you know, brave people still speak out, but a lot of other people they don't have the choice. They don't do it anymore.
OK, Stephen, look, we have to leave it there, but thanks very much for coming on. That was Stephen Ellis from the International Press Institute. Thank you.